Hi, I'm Tim. Thanks for watching this video. I've decided to upgrade my network while I've been changing things around recently. As you probably know from my previous videos, I used to have a UDM Pro, but I've now decided to upgrade it and choose a different model. You probably all know where this is going, and I decided to upgrade to a UDM Pro SE model. So here we have the box with the UDM Pro SE inside. We'll do a quick unboxing and a quick specs, and I'll explain the difference between the UDM Pro model and the UDM-SE model. So as you can see, we've got a diagram on the back of the box and just about the information, what things it can do, and ports on it and so on, what's inside the box. So let's go ahead and open the box. It's in pretty much the standard UniFi plain packaging boxes, which they all are now. So let's peel off this and see what's inside. So it's quite heavy, so I'll put this down. Inside the box we have the standard small UniFi box inside this box, and we have the quick start guide. We have a, hopefully it will be a UK power lead, seeing as I ordered the UK version of this. And yes, it's the UK style power lead, as you can see, and also the end are now slightly different. So they're similar to the kettle leads, what you get with the 3 pins, what I call kettle leads anyway, and what we call them in the UK. So hopefully you can see that has the 3 pins, but it fits actually with this ridge around the edge. It fits flush into the back now rather than sticking out the back of the actual device. Then we have the little hardware kit, of course, with the rubber feet, the screws for mounting it in a rack, and as you can see behind me, it will be going in this rack. I'll be jigging things around, changing things around in this rack so that we can fit the UDM Pro in, and so that it links up to the patch panel, lines up properly so it looks nice and neat and tidy. Going back to this little box, we have the rack mount ears, so we have a set of those. Let's put those to one side, and then what you're all waiting for is the UDM Pro SE. So let's get this out of the box and throw this box away. And a bit of polystyrene packaging, but not as much as they used to have. It's just for stop it getting damaged in transit, which you can fully understand really. And here in this bag we have our UDM-SE. So let's take it out this bag, which stops it getting scratched as well. So here we have the UDM Pro SE, and let's start with the back. We have the connector for the UPS and also the power one at this end, so that just releases the cover that takes off, and that's where the power lead goes, and it actually locks in. If you can see this, hopefully there's a little switch there that you release to unlock it and lock the power cord in. So that's why the power cords are slightly different now. So if you were to use, for example, the standard kettle lead, what I call, that would go in there, but the kettle lead would obviously stick out the back, so you wouldn't be able to lock it in. Hence why they've designed their own sort of power leads now. But you could actually use the kettle lead in it if you lost the power lead, for example. So now that we've taken that cover off, we can power it on with that. So let's put that back on for the time being. That just clicks in. And then looking at the front, we have the usual 1.3 inch touchscreen. We have the drive bay for UniFi Protect, and we have 8 ports. Now these ports are different to the UDM Pro, as these ones are PoE. So the top row, we have port number 1, 3, 5 and 7, and then the bottom row we have the even numbers, which are 2, 4, 6 and 8. They are all PoE ports, so all 8 are PoE ports, but port 1 and 2 are PoE plus ports, which they're not on the UDM Pro. Then moving across, we have the 2.5 gigabit WAN port. So port 9 is now a 2.5 gigabit WAN port, whereas on the UDM Pro it's only a 1 gigabit. Then we have, and port 10 is also can be configured as a WAN port, and it's an SFP plus port, so that's actually a 10 gigabit port. And then the final port at the bottom there, which is port number 11, is also an SFP plus port, so it's a 10 gigabit port, and that one I'll be using as an uplink into my switch. So that's basically the UDM Pro SE. I know it's not a new model, but it's new to me anyway, so I'll just go through some specs with you quickly. The weight of it is, I'm just referring to notes here, by the way, so sorry for not looking at the camera, but it's the same dimensions as the UDM Pro. The weight is 5 kilos versus 3.9 kilos for the UDM Pro. It's aluminium and steel. It has a quad-core ARM Cortex A57 1.5 gigahertz processor, as does the UDM Pro. The system memory, it has 4 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, as the same as the UDM Pro. The onboard storage is a 16 gigabyte eMMC and also an integrated 128 gigabyte SSD drive. That's actually the same as the UDM Pro, apart from that is the 128 gigabyte SSD, which the UDM Pro I don't believe has. The management interface is Ethernet and Bluetooth. Networking, as I've just explained, there's 8 gigabit RJ45 ports, one 10 gigabit SFP plus port, and for the WAN there's one 2.5 gigabit RJ45 port and one 10 gigabit SFP plus port. The PoE, there's 8 PoE ports on there, and 2 of those are PoE plus, as I just mentioned. The IDS IPS throughput is the same as the UDM Pro, and that being 3.5 gigabits per second. It pulls up to a maximum of 50 watts, and that's excluding PoE, and that's versus 33 watts on the UDM Pro. The PoE budget is 180 watts, and the maximum PoE wattage per port is, for PoE it's 15.4 watts, or PoE plus is 30 watts per port. So that's basically it. We'll get it installed into the cabinet. So now that we've unboxed the UDM Pro SE, we'll get on to unboxing the second network upgrade. Now you're probably wondering why I wanted this upgrade, and here's the UK power lead, which is supplied separately, actually in the packaging of course, but not actually in the device box itself. And you're probably wondering what the device is. Well, here it is in the box, and if you don't already know, it's a USW 16 Pro Max network switch with, of course, Etherlighting. So let's get this box opened and we'll take a look inside. Now, it's actually different packaging from the normal Ubiquity equipment that I've purchased before. It's actually a lighter coloured cardboard box instead of the darker coloured cardboard, what it normally is. And it's fairly plain packaging, of course. It has a little image of the switch at the front there, UniFi on the end, and the little UniFi and the web address there on the back of the box. And at the side it tells you what the device is, and it's a Pro Max 16. On the bottom you will find the barcode for the product, the name, and also the serial number of the device and the official UniFi logo. Now, just before I open it, you're probably wondering why I decided to upgrade. Well, it's been a few years since I had the UniFi Network equipment before, and I had a UDM Pro. It was quite okay for needs, you know, it did its job very well. I also used to have cameras on it, and if you saw my previous video, I decided to buy a separate UniFi Protect device, meaning a UNVR, which is in the cabinet here. So that handles the UniFi Protect for the doorbell and cameras and things. Now, why I decided to upgrade the switch was because at the moment, if you've seen previous videos, I'm using and testing out some Grandstream equipment. And I'm using a Grandstream switch, and I previously used the Grandstream router in the cabinet as well. But the UDM Pro SE is actually working, and I've been testing it to make sure it's okay before I do the full video series. So that's in there working at the moment. But I decided to upgrade my switch, well, for a number of reasons. Apologies for looking down below, but I'm just referring to notes as well. I don't have a teleprompter. If anyone's watching, any companies out there that have teleprompters and want to send me one, by all means do. It'd be quite welcome. Anyway, moving on. What I needed to upgrade the switch for was I wanted to spend probably about no more than £300 on the new switch. Because of doing all the upgrade at once, it's quite expensive. I didn't need any PoE or PoE Plus ports because of the UDM-SE behind me supporting PoE. But what I did want was a switch that supports 10 gig, and this has two 10 gig SFP Plus ports on it, so that I can uplink it into the UDM Pro, which also has a 10 gigabit uplink port on it. So that's what I did need. And I also needed one 10 gig SFP Plus port for my Synology NAS, which has 10 gig networking in it. What I also wanted was some 2.5 gig network ports, because my PC supports 2.5 gig networking, and also just to future-proof it a bit with 2.5 gig sort of becoming more of the norm now. So I found the Pro Max 16 supports 10 gig, 2.5 gig, and of course Etherlighting is nice. So let's get this box opened. Cardboard tape. I have to say, this box is actually quite light. It's not as heavy as the usual switches. Let's take that out. And also at the side there's another box there, and of course I'll recycle that cardboard. So in this small box, I'm guessing we should have the power leads in there. And what do we have? Two brackets. We have the usual quick start guide, the actual European power lead, which I don't need, and then of course we have the power brick. Because this doesn't have an internal power supply, they supply an external power brick, and they did supply me with a UK power lead, as you can see, so that goes into the power brick, and then it's powered by a USB-C connection. So that's a USB-C connection. And we have the mounting screws and raw plugs to mount it to a wall, and also there's the rubber feet in packet there, and also a little UniFi plastic disc. So I'm not mounting it to a wall because I'm putting it in the cabinet. So what I'll be doing is putting it on the rubber feet, and then it will be sitting on top of one of the other devices in my network cabinet. I didn't buy the rack mount bracket, which you have to buy separately, and it's about, I believe, about £35 sterling. So I didn't bother with the rack mount accessory. If you want to know what the rack mount accessory does, it fixes onto the side, so you'd have a box to make the switch the same length, so it'd be 19 inch with the actual box at the side, and then the power supply sits in the box, and which makes it a 19-inch rack mount. There's also the flat cardboard plate with the spirit level in it there, as you can see at the top, and that's for mounting it to a wall. So open the switch in the packet, and here we have the USW 16 Pro Max Etherlighting 16-port network switch. As you can see, we've got 16 ports at the front. We've got the usual 1.3-inch screen with the actual peel-off label on it, so let's take that off. And we have then two 10 gigabit SFP plus ports, that's port 17 and 18, and also from port number 13 to 16, so that's 4 of them are 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports, and those are the 4 at the end there, and the rest up to port 12 and including port 12 are just 1 gigabit networking ports. So the bottom QR code with the power requirements showing on a label there. Each end we have 2 open slots there. So that's what the actual little plastic disc is for. It's to open these 2 slots at the left hand side. So we put that in there and click and release. They should release out. Popped out, and that's where you would mount power supply tray at the side there, so that will be fixed into there, and then the power brick would go inside the tray at the side to make it a 19-inch, as I said earlier. So I'll just put that cover back on, which popped off, so that can go back in there. Goes in at the top first, under the lip, and then the bottom will actually just click in like that. And the same with the other side as well. So you could actually mount the power brick at the right hand side or left hand side, depending on what you want to do. So that's the switch. And at the back, of course, we have the USB-C connector where it powers on the device there. So the brick goes in there. So that's the USW Pro Max 16 Etherlighting network switch. And as I didn't actually say earlier, but it's the non-PoE version, as I've already got PoE ports in my UDM Pro SE. I didn't need the PoE on this. It saved me about £100 because the PoE model is about £100 more. I couldn't actually buy this in the Ubiquiti UK store, so I ended up buying it in the EU store. And actually it did arrive quite quickly. It only took 2 days to arrive from, I believe it was from the Netherlands where it was shipped from, and it arrived safely in 2 days via UPS. So if you do want to buy anything and it's not in the UK store and you notice it in the EU store, just go ahead and order it there, and they do actually, as I say, send the UK power lead with it. I'm just referring to notes here, so apologies for that. It weighs 1.95 kilograms. It's made of steel. There's 12 gigabit ports, 4 1 or 2.5 gigabit ports, 2 10 gigabit SFP plus ports. The total non-blocking throughput is 42 gigabits per second. Switching capacity is 84 gigabits per second. Forwarding rate 62.496 million packets per second. Power supply is 5 volts and it consumes up to 25 watts. The 1.3 touch screen on it on the front. There's a factory reset button as well. And it's also layer 3 as well. So it actually is a layer 2 and layer 3 switch. And of course Etherlighting. So that's a quick specs review of it. So now that we've done that, what I'll do is I'll go on and we'll unbox the next item. And here we are. The third and final item at the moment, well for this video series anyway, is the U6 Lite wireless access point. Now why did I choose a U6 Lite? Well basically it was again cost. It cost about £95 sterling here in the UK. And I did actually buy this from the Ubiquiti UK store because they had them in stock. It's actually quite a small box, as you can see. It's just about hand width and depth, the box, so it's very light as well. And also one of the other reasons is because I don't use many wireless devices. Most of my devices in this property are actually via Cat6 cable, so they're actually Ethernet connected. I only use probably about 5 or 6 wireless devices, including my wireless doorbell and wireless door chime as well, and my smart sensor. And one of the reasons I did choose this U6 Lite is because it also has Bluetooth, so it supports the smart sensor as well. So it has Bluetooth connectivity for UniFi IoT devices. I'll just go through a quick specs with this. It's got 1 gigabit RJ45 port on it for connecting to the network. It supports, as I say, Ethernet and Bluetooth via the management interface. Power method is support via PoE and also passive PoE 48 volts. Supported voltage range is 44 to 57 volts DC. Maximum power consumption as well is quite low with this, and it's actually only 12 watts maximum power. Maximum transmit power on the 2.4 band is 23 decibels. 5 gigahertz is also 23 decibels. MIMO on the 2.4 is 2x2 SU MIMO. On the 5 it is 2x2 DLUL MU MIMO, and 2.4 gigahertz is 300 megabits per second throughput rate. 5 gigahertz is 1.2 gigabits per second. The antenna gain is 2.8 dBi on the 2.4, and for the 5 gigahertz it is 3 dBi. LEDs are white and blue depending on what status it is. It can be wall or ceiling mounted, and the ceiling mount kit is actually included in the box. Wi-Fi standards are 802.1a, B, G, N, AC and AX, so it supports Wi-Fi 6. And the BSSID, you can have 8 per radio. So that's basic specs of it. If you want to look at detailed specs, just go onto the Ubiquiti website, obviously, where you can find specs of all the devices that I'm putting in the network cabinet. So let's get on to unboxing. Again, it's got the usual peel off cardboard strip at the top, and inside we open up the box and we should find, yes, the actual tool, as well as some screws for mounting. Actually release this, and it pulls out, so it's got a good, you just pull the tab out and again get rid of that box. And here we have the U6 Lite access point, and it's got a plastic protective cover over it, over the disc. So there we are, the plastic cover, and that's the U6 Lite. Very light, very compact, just for what I need. And here we have the 1 gigabit Ethernet port, and then next to that there's also a reset button. So that's all there is to that. In the box we have the disc, so it's a template, and we have the usual metal mounting back plate, and then we have the disc that would go onto the actual ceiling, so that would be screwed to the underside of the ceiling, and then the access point would fix on and then twist, so it twists onto that plate like that. And of course, if you had a drop down ceiling, you would fix that to the other side of the actual drop ceiling, and then the screws which are provided in the kit there would be used to screw through and through the drop recessed ceiling, and that would go on the back. But you get the idea, and then the access point would fix onto there. So that's basically the U6 Lite access point. It can support up to 300 plus clients. So what we'll do is I'll get the switch mounted into the cabinet, the access point mounted to the ceiling, and then I'll show you connecting up the patch cables from the patch panel into the switches. So I'll show you what I'm doing there, so you know what's connected where. And then in the next video, what we'll do is go up and set up basic WAN and LAN access on the UniFi Network controller. So here we are, and as you can see, I've mounted the switch. So this is the USW 16 Pro Max Etherlighting Network switch, and it's the 16 port non-PoE version. As I said earlier in the video, I've just removed the two SFP plastic covers from the SFP module ports, and what I'm doing next is inserting these. They are 10 G-Tech SFP Plus modules, and they go from 1 gigabit, I believe also 2.5 gigabit, and up to 10 gigabits per second. And they are, as I say, 10 G-Tech SFP Plus modules. These I found on Amazon, and I know that they do work with Ubiquiti equipment. So if you can't find the official Ubiquiti ones, you can also use these if you so wish. So what I'm going to do now is just insert them into the switch to SFP ports and click the gold connector up, and then the second one as well, and then the gold connector pushes up and they lock into place. So one of these is going to go for the uplink, between the uplink on the UDM Pro SE. So what we'll do is connect this one. I'll use the slightly longer cable. What I will be doing is getting some new cables done, and I'll probably go, because these are not Etherlighting ones, I'll probably get the Etherlighting ones later on, but I'll let you know in another video about that. So what we're doing is connecting this cable between the SFP module on the UDM-SE, and this is the uplink cable between the UDM-SE and the switch. So what I'm doing is just connecting that into both of the SFP ports so that we get 10 gigabit uplink. Then this one is going into the 2.5 gigabit port on the UDM-SE, and this is for the WAN connection, because I will be getting an upgrade on my WAN connection, and this goes into the patch panel connection marked fiber. So the fiber connection has a Cat 6 cable going from the ONT box into the back of the patch panel. So I'm connecting that into the fiber connection, and as you can see, the WAN is actually just connecting itself. The UDM-SE is powered on already for testing purposes, and then what we'll do is connect the next cable, and this is for my NAS, Synology NAS, which has a 10 gigabit connection. So that will go from the patch panel marked NAS1, and this will go into the SFP port on the switch. Then we have my PC, which is marked B1. That will go into B1, and then as my PC has a 2.5 gigabit NIC, it's going into port 16 on the USW 16 Pro Max switch, which is a 2.5 gigabit port. Then the next one is the L4 port. That doesn't need 2.5 gigabit, but what it does need is PoE. So we'll be connecting that straight into the UDM-SE, and that's the PoE port, and that's the power on my voice over IP telephone. So all I do is just continue connecting up the cables into the switch from the patch panel, and then what we'll do is in the next video we'll go and get basic internet and LAN setup, so WAN and LAN setup on the UniFi network. I can get the switch adopted and also the wireless access point adopted. But before I do that, what I'll do is power on the switch now. So let's plug the switch in, and so you can see the ether lighting. There you go. Quite cool, isn't it? So I'll get the cables connected up, wait for all the devices to power on, and then in the next video we'll get them adopted in UniFi Network and get the basic internet and LAN set up in the UniFi controller. Thanks for watching this video. Hope you liked it. Take care. Bye for now.